Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. It's Friday night. Most of you are off for the weekend, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to enjoy that. The weather is going to be great. If you don't know where you are by now, it's probably too late for you. So you are at the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, and tonight I will be having Dennis Smith on. He's running for Attorney General here in the great state of Marxisota. Yes, he's been on once before, but there have been a few developments since the last time he was on. One of those is I got more professional. I dressed up for this today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not wearing my sweatshirt. I'm not wearing my hoodie. I'm wearing my beanie because everybody expects that. And Dennis came into the studio, into the green room, and we were talking before the show, and he's wearing a t-shirt. So I'm just going to point this out, ladies and gentlemen. When the lawyer comes in, the lawyer comes in, he's wearing a t-shirt. I'm wearing a button down. I won't tell you what I'm having down below this area here. It's probably just shorts or boxers, but you don't need to see that. That just ends up in people getting fired. So anyway, if you haven't yet, by the way, the 22-0 campaign to end veteran suicide has ended. We did raise at least $150 to go towards that between what I raised and one of the people kicking in. And we have another person that's going to kick in as well. I just have to connect with him. So we're looking at least $200, could be as much as $250, maybe $300, to be able to send to the guys over at 22-0. Quite frankly, because no one's taking care of the veterans in this country right now. The one group of people that should be taking care of them are the VA and the Department of Defense, and they're not. Because we like to send our boys and girls off to war and then bring them home and let them suffer. So that's done. I'm thinking about another campaign here. I'm not sure exactly who I want to pick up on this time, but we'll see. Maybe Dennis will say something tonight that'll inspire me. I know, well, he always says something that inspires me towards something. But anyway, if you're interested in merchandise, keychains, these are really nice. Coffee, just got another order for coffee today, by the way. Slate, hear that? I feel like I should be doing ASMR right now. You got Slate. Those are beautiful. I can't use it. I want to use it during the show, but I can't because then I can't show it to you. And then, of course, the tumblers and the beautiful mason jars and the low ball and the coffee mugs. I think this is the one my mom bought. She likes it. And if my mom likes something that I'm sold, we're doing all right. So share this out. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I would ask that you do that. It drives me up in the algorithm. I depend on YouTube now to help me make money. My mom always said I should find a job where I could get paid to talk, and I finally have done that. Now, if I could just actually get paid, that'd be great. And I was going to make a lawyer joke, but I thought I should hold off until after Dennis is in, and then I'll pick on him for being a lawyer. Judson, thanks for stopping in. But anyway, if you haven't subscribed, do that. Hit the bell icon to get notification when I go live. Share this out if you would. We are actually going to talk about a couple of difficult issues tonight, and I already warned Dennis about that, and Mary did all the coordination. We've been working on this for a couple of months. It feels like we've been missing each other in the busyness of life. But we're going to bring Dennis on. Dennis, thank you. Oh, you were muted for a second. Go ahead.
Oh,
Dennis.
I said good evening. It's great to be back on your show.
You're one of the few repeat guests that I've had that have, and you actually said it's great to be on, which is really nice. Normally they're like, I'm only here because I felt obligated.
No, I asked to come back on. I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much. It's what this campaign is doing, is talking to everyone throughout the state, and I never miss an opportunity for that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if you're going to get everyone throughout the state, but you're going to at least get 4 people and probably about 5 hate watchers. So,
Well, I know your viewership is larger than that, but I love humor, so that was good.
I like that you threw that and you're like, I love humor. That was good. So, so Dennis, I wanted to start off tonight. I didn't warn you about this beforehand. I wanted to start off tonight by I know the last time we did this, I apologize, but this is a different apology. The last time that we talked, I failed to do what I said I would do, and you and I've talked about this via text. The first time we met, you said, "Hey, I got a couple of names of people that are funded through," and we found out later on that we were wrong about the original name for funding. It ended up being Bloomberg and his foundation that funded 2 people that went to work for the Attorney General's office here in the state of Minnesota. They are Bloomberg interests. I think they came from his environmental studies wing, and they are working directly for Keith Ellison and being paid for. At some level, I'm sure the taxpayers in Minnesota are on the hook, but I also know that Bloomberg is funding them as well. And oh, hey, you are in the presence of greatness tonight, Dennis, by the way, and it's not me. My buddy from England, Pirate Tomsky, is here, and Judson, who is from way down south. And when by down south, I don't mean just Iowa. So, hi guys. You had mentioned that these individuals are working directly for Keith Ellison, being funded in no small part by Bloomberg, who is really just a mini Soros. You know, it has a lot of ties to Soros as well. And I said when you announced that at the event in Rochester back in September, I said, give us those names. And I said, if you don't give us those names, then I'll blast you. And that great way to start a relationship, by the way. But I failed to hold you to that, and I still had you on my show, and I still didn't bring it up. And so I failed you in reminding you that you owed me that. And so I apologize, not only to you, but to my audience for that. It was a failure on my part. And we have subsequently released those names and talked about it. I did that on my own after I talked to you. But how big of a deal do people need to understand that is? That we have outside influences in the state of Minnesota finagling things with our sitting attorney general. This is literally tantamount, in my eyes, to having a lobbyist in your office getting paid to be in your office, helping you make policy decisions. Is that not correct?
No, that is correct. And it is a significant thing. And there's so many things that the Attorney General, the existing one, soon to be former, is doing wrong that we just add that to the list. But it cannot be overlooked. And we know the media is not going to carry this story and not talk about it in the way that they should. Not talk about it in the way that they should or they would if it's a Republican. But so that's why I appreciate you bringing this up and you talking about it before, because we do need to inform all voters about these egregious acts that the Attorney General is doing. And this is one of them. I mean, it so impacts the trust. My opening line of my stump speech that I'm coming up on the 1-year anniversary, which I'm really excited about. The opening line is about how we have lost trust in our institutions, our government, our judicial system, our voting system, the media, and even some with each other. And this week, TC, I hope this comes up. I added to that list in my speech the last 2 nights I gave it, the Supreme Court. That's something I thought I would never have to add to that list, but I did. And when the Attorney General has people in the office that should not be there, that clearly have an agenda. I mean, they have an agenda. Regardless what the agenda is, it's an agenda. It doesn't belong in that office. And I say it every time this issue comes up. That will never happen when I'm Attorney General. I'm not one of these people that says, well, I don't like that because we're not benefiting, or our side or our thinking is not benefiting. No, that won't happen when I'm Attorney General. I don't care how much money they offer or what they try to say. We need to bring back the trust in the Attorney General's office. And that's something I will do to help rebuild the trust. Is we will have only official employees in the office. There'll be none of this office sharing, and it's not such a big deal. They're just in for a day. It is completely wrong by anyone's measurement, and the Attorney General should be called out for it in a larger fashion. And he will this fall when him and I go one-on-one.
You mentioned the Supreme Court in the event of this week. Actually, it was Monday night. I was live streaming with my friend Robert, and we were talking about him being an entrepreneur and stuff, and how all of the decisions across the country related to the COOF. You probably remember that we don't mention that particular virus by name on my show, so because it gets me shadow banned. But we were talking about it when news broke that this leak had happened, and it's good news for people who are pro-life and against infanticide, that the Supreme Court is leaning the way it is. But what does it say about just how deep corruption can be, even within the justice wing of the state, when something that profound is being leaked and put out so far ahead of time? And how does somebody combat that? Because these are the kind of things that can happen here at the state level. And obviously, as Attorney General, the Attorney General doesn't have any sway over the Supreme Court of the state of Minnesota, obviously. But the Attorney General does have a grasp on important issues within the justice system, and has to hold those things closely for a plethora of reasons. How do you respond to something like that when you see it can happen at that level? What can an Attorney General do in Minnesota to prevent that from happening in their own office?
Yeah, and I talk about this on the campaign trail as well when they bring up how can the Attorney General impact an area that they don't have direct oversight of or work with directly. And it goes to the tone and tenor and the level of expectation that the community and our state has with the Attorney General. I talk about changing the tone and tenor with the police and the community, which is in dire straits, and people have lost trust in the police department. And so now that we've lost trust in the Supreme Court, we need to do all the little things to help restore that trust. And I'm uniquely qualified to help do that with the court system and the police and the community and the government and the media. But it just highlights about how big of a hole that we are in. It just boggles the mind that the Supreme Court has a leak of that magnitude. And I haven't commented, and I don't comment about what the justice wrote, because number one, the opinion is not final.
And
number
it shouldn't
two,
be public.
Exactly, it shouldn't be public. Number two, I know it's been authenticated, but I don't necessarily believe that it's been authenticated. I don't know. It's like when it's official, I will comment on it, if it's appropriate. But also, we don't know how the other justices are going to vote. The left and the media are acting like this came out of left field, like they were really surprised that this case was being heard. Well, we knew this case was being heard at the Supreme Court for quite some time. So the fact that a draft decision has been developed, is expected. There's draft decisions written by many justices on this particular issue. That's how it works. So people need to stop the outrage of, I can't believe that they've written something. Let's not focus on that until the decision comes out. We need to talk about how this leak happened. It's never happened before in the Supreme Court. The sacrosanct institution is now on the list of where just political hacks apparently can go and work. And it's unacceptable.
How important is it I'm going to try and get you off a campaign, not off campaign, but I'm going to try. obviously, anytime you speak now, it's campaigning. You can't hardly say good morning, to your significant other when you're running for office without somebody trying to turn it into a campaign speech. But
Yeah.
um, it, how I want to touch on two things actually about what you just said. One, how important is it for the attorney general, even though they run under the auspices of a party nomination or a moniker? Uh, how important is it for an attorney general to approach the office of attorney general from a position of political neutrality? Not that whether you're Christian or not, non-Christian, Muslim or Buddhist, whatever the case might be, whether you're conservative, centrist, classical liberal, libertarian, or a leftist. How important is it for an attorney general to be able to rise above that while in office and remain neutral in their prosecution of the law? Because I see this constantly, and we see it at the federal level with the United States AG. We see it at the local level with attorney generals we may agree with if we're conservative, we're libertarian, or those that we disagree with in the case of the man who is currently in office here in the state of Minnesota. But how important is it? I mean, and I know I've said that numerous times because I think it's that important. How much neutrality do you need to bring to that position?
It's TC. It's a great question. It is critically important. It's at the core of the very existence of that office. This position needs to be neutral, or it impacts everything this office does. And Lady Justice, she wears a blindfold because we expect justice to be blind. And it's a contradiction when we have an office that is political by the current attendee, has been political in the past. And it erodes the trust that we've been talking about that's been weaving in and out of our conversation so far this evening. We cannot expect people to respect and to think the attorney general is doing the right thing for the state of Minnesota when they're political on the issue at hand or other issues. Like the fact that the attorney general came out to defund the police and advocated openly to have the Minneapolis Police Department not exist. That was just like, if someone told me that, I would not believe it if I wasn't watching it unfold. I mean, I would believe it with this attorney general, but if it was from another state, because how can someone show their cards about what they really believe so much and then have a prosecution come up against a police officer and expect them to be, to have this neutrality? And we saw yesterday that this isn't working for the attorney general, because now he has victims of crimes coming forward, and they're saying that they're expecting that he's shown his cards for what's supposed to happen. They're disappointed that the outcome wasn't blank, didn't happen a certain way. So it's not good. It impacts the entire office. It won't be that way when I'm attorney general.
Well, let me push on it from this perspective. You mentioned how important law enforcement is, and I agree. I mean, obviously, some things have changed in my life since the first time we met, and I have gone public now about the attack on me by my former employer because of my views, and so you're taking a big risk even being here again. So, but the reality is that law enforcement, and you've talked about how important it is to back up law enforcement, but our sitting attorney general said he's going to prosecute cops for everything, and we've seen that now play out there again. The George Floyd situation of 2020, tragic. I don't believe for a minute that any one of those officers went out there that day to murder anyone, let alone kill George Floyd in particular. But we have seen other things, Dante Wright's situation, his death, bad situation. And the attorney general's office was chomping at the bit to throw the book at that officer. And so I bring that up in particular because just yesterday, a local police office department released body cam footage of Dante's mother, Katie, shooting video of officers on a high risk stop. And everybody is coming out and the lines are drawn. The left is coming out saying, "Oh, she's a hero. She's doing this wonderful work." And the right is coming out going, "Oh, she's just a rabble rouser. She's just a troublemaker, and she's out there to provoke the cops, to cause a problem." And for those of you that don't know, I'm going to actually tomorrow on my Saturday sit rep, Minnesota Black Regiment Saturday sit rep, I'm going to be doing a breakdown of the video that we do have. I've looked at it. I have opinions on her conduct, and I have opinions on the officer's conduct. And both of them, actually, believe it or not, a lot of people are going to be shocked by this, or they won't. She did something wrong, but I actually think the officer did more that was inappropriate. And you're very much pro law enforcement. It's been part of your campaign from the get-go. And I appreciate that. I think the support for law enforcement is important. I think the best way that an attorney general or a county attorney can support law enforcement is actually prosecute actual crimes and not get involved in the defund or fund the police argument, not make it easier for accused criminals to get out without bond or bail. I mean, obviously there's a constitutional protection for criminals or the accused, excuse me, to not have an unreasonable bond or bail set. But how do you operate in a pro law enforcement environment when there are great cops out there who are doing their job right, but then there are examples of cops who are out there who are treading all over the constitutional, and I hate the use of the word civil because it evokes a different image. How do you push the importance of supporting law enforcement when there are literally still law enforcement officers out there who do not understand the Constitution and do not understand their oath to it, and how they are not to infringe upon the constitutional rights of others? Because that's still a huge deal. And we're starting to see this take place. The right's starting to wake up to this going, I've been pro law enforcement my whole life. And the people who they sent to shut down my business were the cops, and they were on board with it.
Right.
That's a tenuous position for somebody right now when we saw what they did to Larvita McFarquhar, what they did to Lisa Hansen, what they did to Lisa Monet, what they've done to countless businesses across the state. That was done by law enforcement. All of a sudden we're gonna have trouble connecting. Nobody wants to ever talk about that anymore.
Yeah. No. Oh no. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were finished. TC, how I handle this as Attorney General will be treating everybody with fairness and the same application of the law. The police, we have so many good police officers, and we've got some bad actors, and we need to continue to weed out the people that should be in a different profession. And the front of my lit piece, if you remember, it's been my tagline from the very beginning. I live it, I breathe it. It says tough. It says I'm tough. It says I'm fair. And it says together. So we need to be fair. And that's all the police want. They like to have the accountability of having the cameras and to have most of their actions or all of their actions recorded. They're very happy about that. And the fact that citizens are recording police officers goes to show that they've lost the trust that their own video camera is not sufficient. So that goes to how there's this broken trust. And it's because when officers do something wrong, they're not treated the proper way. They're not treated the exact same way that that they should be treated if someone else commits the same type of crime. So police officers just want a fair shake. So I'm going to defend the police and I'm going to support them. But you're right. When they do something wrong, they need to be held accountable in the exact same fair way that someone that is not an officer would be held accountable. Now, there are some differences, and we don't have time to go into all those different nuances, but they want to have a fair shake. And
I don't have to go to bed tonight.
And I think many police officers feel that there's been incidences recently where they haven't been given a fair shake. And the fact that the police are carrying out some of the orders from the governor and the attorney general has been asking them to do certain things during the during the last couple of years that we've been through. I almost said it there. You got me. I almost said it.
I was getting ready to mute you. So
I know. Yes, I didn't say it. I have that. I have that mental toughness. So what we've been through in the last couple of years, when they implement, these particular orders and initiatives, it erodes the trust, and they should think twice before they're doing something to ask to do something that they don't feel good about doing. Because I've spoken to officers and I've spoken to county attorneys that have told the Attorney General's office respectfully, no, we're not going to carry out your order because we don't think it's the right thing to do, or we feel it's unconstitutional, etc. So
I've spoken to a sheriff in particular, as it relates to some degree in the area surrounding Lisa Hansen, and I know you're familiar with the Lisa Hansen situation. I've spoken to a sheriff who got a call from our current sitting attorney general's office, and they're like, "We're really expecting you to step up to the plate and help us out with this." And he told him, "Pound sand. I'm not doing that." Well, at the same time, within that same jurisdiction in that particular city of Albert Lea, the chief of police couldn't get on board with that enough, along with the city attorney. And that's what really, I don't want to say terrifies me, but that's what really frustrates me with the partisanship within the justice system right now. And you've got people out there like, hang everybody, if they're accused or guilty, hang them. And then you've got people out there, I don't care if you caught them with blood on their hands and the gun still in their hand, they're not guilty because, well, they've suffered in their life, and they're a product of a system that is systematically, racist, and therefore they shouldn't be held accountable. And then you've got other people over here going, I want criminals convicted, I want law enforcement accountable, and I want the right outcome on this. And that's a very, very tough position. How would you deal with counseling? Because the governor, to some degree, although they're not technically the boss of the attorney general, they're kind of all in that same camp of we work together, so we have to get along. And it can be very difficult if you have a more conservative attorney general and a more left-leaning governor. There's going to be some headbutting going on. How are you going to, let's say you win and you come out of this, you're miles ahead of all of your competition through the primaries, and you're miles ahead of Ellison in the polls, and you shatter it, and you take office next year, and we end up with Walz as governor again, and we have another round of illness, and he's like, oh, well, we got to do it. How are you going to push back against that? How do you deal with that? Because he's got all these other departments that he actually controls.
Right. Yeah. Well, I am a fighter, and I will fight. I say this when I travel across the state. I've been in 82 counties in the last almost year, talking to every single person that will stop and listen. We're having meetings of every size, small, large, meeting with people that vote Democrat, vote Independent, vote Republican. And I say the same thing, is that I am a fighter, and I will fight for every single Minnesotan. And I will use a variety of tactics. I will use private persuasion with the governor, and I will talk to the governor one-on-one and convince the governor, he or she, about how they are wrong and what they're doing. And then I'll go public with it, and we'll have a discourse throughout our state about what's going on. Something we all can agree was lacking in the last couple of years. And after what we've been through in the last couple of years, I think we're itching for a fight. We're itching for someone who will stand up for our individual rights throughout this entire state. I'm the only candidate that can beat Keith Ellison. And when I beat him, I will do that. I will go to that office of Attorney General, and I will fight for every single Minnesotan. And when the governor, if those tactics are not, don't get the outcome that I think is just, then we'll go to the court system, and we will bring this issue into our judicial system to get the right outcome. So we make sure that we're doing the best we can for every Minnesotan.
We know what sets you apart from Ellison. I mean, you'd have to be, well, you know what? I don't think you could be a dead corpse and be more conservative than Ellison. So that's more constitutionally minded than Ellison. I have no problem saying that. Everybody knows how I feel about Ellison. I've called him out more than once on my channel. But when it comes to law and order and the Constitution, what sets you apart from, without naming names, what sets you apart from all of the other candidates running for Attorney General this year?
Yeah, and thanks for asking, TC, because I get this question a lot. And here's the main points. Number one, we need a candidate that can win the suburbs. And I'm the only candidate that has represented a suburban district that has won. Hillary Clinton, you might remember from my talking points in the last time you heard my speech, Hillary Clinton won my district in 2016. She beat Donald Trump by 5 points. I beat her by almost 10. That means I had people in my district vote for me that don't agree with me on every issue, that I was able to build that trust with the voters, and it transcended the word Republican, the word conservative, and they voted for someone they knew they wouldn't agree with every single time, but they trusted me to do the right thing for the state. We need a candidate that can do that, only one that can.
Let me, since you brought that up, there, the Trump issue and whatnot. As everybody knows, 2016, I did not vote for Trump. I didn't like him. I didn't care for him. I didn't think he was an accurate representation of my values. 2020, I voted for him. I wouldn't necessarily say it was hold my nose and, kind of ignore the stink kind of vote, but it was definitely a vote of desperation to some degree, especially here in Minnesota. But there has been some talk that you have come out as a never Trumper. Like, I wouldn't vote for the guy no matter what. And I'm never going to support him. And I'm sure you've heard the scuttle. I mean, you can't run for office and not have heard this. So, I mean, right. I'm not dropping anything on you that you haven't had dropped on you before, but I haven't had the opportunity to hear you answer this. Were you a never Trumper even in 2020? And were you in where are you now? If he gets the nomination in 2024, would you say the same thing and say I'm never voting for him? How do you reconcile where you're at in 2016 to where 2020 came around and what it looks like going forward? Because it's we're coming down to a position right now where it's going to be DeSantis or Trump. It literally, it could be, there's 2 more years. I understand. But we know how this works. People campaign constantly. You've been doing it for almost 2 years now. 1 year. But
1 year. Yeah.
1 year. But it's just, especially when it comes to presidential elections, where were you on Trump in 2020? And where are you now?
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of people running for president from the Republican Party. I don't think it's going to be a two-person campaign or contest out of the gate. But I don't know who the people are, but I know Nikki Haley was in Minnesota just a couple of nights ago. A lot of people talk about her running. I think there'll be a lot of people running. But in regard to where I was with Trump, I supported Trump in 2016. I voted for him. I gave him money. I voted for Trump in 2020. I supported him and I gave him money. So what the detractors are talking about is that there was a video clip from the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers. And it was a video clip after George Floyd died. And if you guys haven't seen this on YouTube, I encourage everyone to go find it. So it's the coach of the Clippers, his press conference about when the George Floyd death came up. And he talked about how
that sink in. The LA Clippers felt like he had to have a press conference about George Floyd.
Well, and I'm not defending his actions. I'm saying that he was talking about his team and the question came up, as I believe how it went. A reporter asked him, so he took it on. But he's been passionate about civil rights his entire life. And what he wants as a Black American is to be treated like every American. That's all he's asking for. That's what he's been advocating for. And he talked about that very passionately, about how he would like to have racism ended in our country, something I agree with. He would like everyone to be treated equally in our country, something I agree with. So you know what I did, TC? I liked the video. I liked the tweet. Now, the tweet was produced by a group that was not favorable towards President Trump. At the time, the Lincoln Project, it was sort of unclear as to exactly what their motives were. Since then, we have learned that they are an anti-Trump group. But at the time, the video itself was about how we should not have racism and we need to be treated equally in this country. Okay, those two principles I feel strongly about, and I will stand and defend that notion all day long, every single day. For my opponents that are making this an issue, it's laughable, because what it says to them is that they're the opposite of what I believe in. You can ask them about what they think about that, but I will support anyone who wants to end racism and wants everyone to be treated equally. So they're so desperate that they found this, and then they try to say that I didn't support Trump, and it's just simply not true.
Yeah. So, boy, that certainly sheds a different light on the conversation, doesn't it? Because that's been there again, and none of this is new to you, because your opponents, have brought. Now, obviously, Ellison wouldn't do that. He couldn't possibly imagine Ellison attacking you for being a never Trumper.
Yeah, and then
you know also, what though, Keith continuously surprises me when I think he can't. So
yeah, no, but also I was texting earlier today about how I'm running the most transparent campaign in Minnesota, and you were joking that maybe not, that someone else might be, and so I want to answer the question so no one thinks that there's a conspiracy and I dodged part of the question. I just lost my train of thought because you asked me 3 questions in that one question.
And do
the
that
third
a lot.
question. The third question was, who will I support in 2024? I haven't decided who I'm going to support in 2024. I'm working my butt off to win this election. But whomever the Republicans end up nominating and is on the ballot, I will support that president, including but not limited to Donald Trump.
Well, there you go. So you're not much of an anti or a never Trumper. So
no, let's put
that one to bed, because clearly you just said it here. So when when we come down the road, if Trump's in and I find out you didn't vote, not that, well, by that point we might have to tell everybody who we voted for, just to be able to buy bread and gasoline in the United States. So,
and if we need to do that to bring back voter integrity, I mean, maybe that's an idea we should talk about. But and just to give one more sentence about this, if I could, TC, is that I've been very open about how I love President Trump's policies, not crazy about some of the personality of Trump. I'm not crazy about the tweets that he has made and his tactics of persuasion. I think that is wrong, and I've talked about that. And I really believe if he would have taken a different tactic while he was president, that he would be serving his second term, and our country would be far better off right now for a variety of reasons.
You talked about transparency, and you said you have the most transparent campaign in Minnesota right now, and I told you that that one candidate for governor might argue with you on that one a little bit, jokingly, because he kind of says the same thing that you do, and it's true. You guys are both incredibly transparent, but in the interest of transparency, and you and I have talked about this privately months ago when this happened. You came out about the topic to me very early on, before it was even public, and I respect you for that. You went through an ethics situation related to your law practice, and you accepted responsibility for it, but people are still talking about that, and I think it's in the interest of fairness. It's something to talk about. You gave up you had your law license suspended, if I understand it correctly. for, was it 30 days
Mm-hmm.
as a punitive measure. Let's talk about what happened and why the punishment was put in place, if you will, and how you owned it, and where you were then, where you were during the time of the hearing, and where you are now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whether or
Thanks.
not that disqualifies you in the eyes of some people from being able to do your job.
Yeah. So I appreciate the question because I love talking about this issue because I want to bring attention to it. So over 2 years ago, I I had a client that I represented the family for 15 years. I had a 15-year working relationship with the new client's sister. My client passed away. The sister from Vermont became the executor of the estate. And during this exchange of working through the estate administration, I had a client communication issue, and I fell short on that. And the client wasn't happy. The client went to the board, the professional responsibility board, filed a complaint. I dealt with that issue, 100% exonerated on that issue. The client then wanted to have me continue to represent her, which I did for a few weeks. And then when the board was looking into some compliance issues that weren't related, they were related to the initial claim only because they were in the same file. Compliance issues such as notification of billing, issues like that, things that weren't material. Then they continued to look at their, look at this particular exchange with the client. And I complied fully with the board. The client decided to use someone else to continue to represent her, to complete her the estate administration for her sister that had passed. And then the board went quiet for a long time. They didn't go quiet for 1 month, TC. They didn't go quiet for 2 months, not 3, not 4, not 5. I announced I was running for attorney general during that time period, at month 5, I believe. Month 6, month 7, month 8, quiet. Then all of a sudden, I'm running for attorney general, and they want to bring forward this punishment, which I think was outrageous. And so did other people looking at this case and helping me work through it. And I was faced with the decision. And by the way, this is great for everybody who wants to learn the truth about this state agency. Contact me or Google it on your own. There was 3, not 1, not 2, 3 front page articles of the Metro section about this board and how this board is the Star Tribune, admittedly not a friend of conservative causes. Can we agree on that?
Oh yeah.
Yes. So they wrote an article that you would have thought that someone from my campaign team wrote it, and then everyone's like, how did you get this article placed? It's like, I didn't. That's an independent reporter. They work for the Star Trib. Come on. I didn't write that article. The second one came out 3 weeks later. They're like, what's going on with this? I mean, this board they went and interviewed all the people that no longer work at the board, all the attorneys. And the attorneys and these are the facts in the Star Tribune article. This isn't the Dennis spin. I don't need to spin this. I'm telling the truth. They have over 100% turnover in their organization. So what that means is that they have.
How do you have over 100% turnover? That's mind blowing.
Exactly. And then the Star Trib talked to every one of these attorneys that worked there, the ones that had the courage to come forward. You need to read the words about what they say about this organization specifically. You need to read those words and think about what they mean, because the words they use to describe this organization will bring a lot of light on this.
So
now,
go ahead.
Yep. So for everyone who's watching the governor's race, we know that a particular governor candidate has had his license looked into 5 different times. And every time I talk about this on the trail, someone comes forward, sometimes in front of everybody, sometimes afterwards, and said, thank you for talking about this licensing issue, because I am a contractor, or I'm an electrician, or I'm a dentist, I'm a doctor, I'm an attorney, and they tell me about their interaction with the licensing board. And the common theme is that there's a lot of things that happen in these licensing boards that is not very good. So those three articles are written.
They're very political.
Yes. And
and I know the candidate you're talking about that's running for governor. They've come after his license. It's not in law, but they've come after his license on a couple of issues. And
right.
Well, let me ask this,
yes.
because it's raised the question about your ethics, and you said to me when we talked, like, I made a mistake, I screwed up, I did wrong. And you never denied it. We didn't go into the background on any of that. You just said, I screwed up, and I want you to understand that. Did you screw up? Did you make a mistake?
I did. And TC, leaders just don't get to bask in the sunshine. A true leader stands up when they make a mistake and say, that one's on me, I made a mistake, and have real accountability. We see all the time people say, oh, I'm taking accountability for that. Well, to what consequence? When there's no consequence for your accountability or lack thereof, then what difference does it make if someone is saying that they're claiming that, oh, I'm taking accountability for that? No, a true leader takes accountability and takes the punishment that goes with it. And I could have gone to court and fight this. And they laid out the time frame, and it was set up conveniently where the trial was going to be right during the election in November. So I chose to accept their 30-day suspension.
Wait a minute. You're telling me right now, and in the tens and tens of people that are watching at the moment, that they scheduled the timing of the accusation, for lack of better terminology, the timing of the accusation, and then the trial were scheduled at the height of an election.
Well, TC, they sat on this for 8 months with doing nothing. So one can only conclude.
But they couldn't have known you were going to run for attorney general.
TC, they knew it was public. I mean, it was. I mean, if they.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
It was long before. I mean, I did not campaign illegally. I talked to people about running. I was on the record of going out to Washington in December of 2018 to talk to the Republican Attorney General Association about this race. Like, these are things that I talk about openly. And I don't know what they knew and what they didn't know, but I know that they sat silent for 8 months. And then
and waited till you announced.
Right. And there was never an issue of the schedule going forward. But if you know the court system, you know how long things take. That's about when it would have happened. And I was not talking to anyone about this. I wasn't talking to my children, wasn't talking to my friends. So I really wanted, this went on for 2 years. For 2 years, this went on. You know what that's like to be persecuted in that aspect. I wanted to get this behind me for a variety of reasons. And I knew I could have done better in an area. So I took accountability for that. And that's what leaders do. And I didn't hide from this. Like, I appreciate you saying that I talked about this, because you know what I did when I went to the press. I brought it to the press. Then I held a press conference the next day. I invited 10,000 people to the press conference. It was out there, an open press conference to 10,000 people on Zoom. And I've talked about this in every instance since. And so it's like Smith has character. He accepts responsibility when he does something wrong. And I've learned from this, TC. I've learned this has been a very good thing for me. And I know that I have compassion and empathy for fellow attorneys. I've heard from a lot of them that have been through similar things, very similar experience. And when I'm Attorney General, I will be a better Attorney General with all the attorneys in that office because of this.
How did that impact your campaign, that 30 days of suspension? I mean, did it impact fundraising? Did it impact support? I mean, you put out a newsletter on a pretty regular basis that talks about where you're at, talks about fundraising. And the last thing that I saw is you're actually outpacing the kind of the quintessential heir apparent to the nomination. And I say heir apparent because, I mean, I want to say this somewhat carefully. Both parties in the major two-party system here in the state of Minnesota tend to kind of select whoever they want ahead of time, and we don't hear much else about anybody who's challenging them. But you're outpacing one of your the supposed front runner on campaign funding right now.
Well, TC, even more than that, yes, even more than that, I'm outpacing the Attorney General Keith Ellison, 18-year member of Congress, 3.5-year incumbent Attorney General, and we have more than 2.5 times cash on hand than him. 2.5 times more cash on hand. We've raised more money than so far in this race than he raised for the entire election last time.
And that's coming from a broad spectrum.
Yes, indeed. And the campaign is going great. You know, people are curious about this issue for the ones that hear about it. And when I talk about it, people understand it and they see for what it is. And they give me credit for taking accountability, actual accountability with a consequence for when I could have done better on something. I mean, are we really trying to pretend that everyone is perfect? I mean, it's just, you know, anyone who tries to argue this point against me, it's not a very good argument. And
the thing that floors me in this is that, you know, we could talk about the ethics of your situation. We could. We absolutely could. You made a mistake. You owned it. It kind of got brushed under the rug for a while. They held it and they sat on it. Big surprise. But we have a sitting attorney general who was accused credibly, and somehow managed to skate away from it, of severe domestic abuse. And no one bats an eye. And anytime somebody who's not on the left brings that up, you're just a racist. Oh, you don't understand all of the facts. You don't understand everything that happened. But there are multiple people who say, no, this is what happened. This is a reality. Your situation is one individual made an accusation and retained you as their lawyer. And
TC, we know it's political. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I want to make sure this comes in. We know it's political because there's a third person involved who wasn't my client, and she got interviewed by NPR, someone who seeks the truth for stories. We can dispute about their bias, whether they have any or not, but this person told NPR it is political. She said, I wasn't concerned about this until I knew he was running for Attorney General.
Right.
Her own words
remember
in
reading
the
that
NPR article. So this is.
I read it. I was like, what? Like, that's like, seriously,
right.
NPR? You platformed this person who said, I wasn't worried until.
Right. And what I say to these people who want to try to tear us down, people that are fighting for conservatism in this state, people who are defending the Constitution, is I say, you know, bring it on, because I don't crack under pressure and I can take it because I'm fighting for the soul of this state. I'm fighting to bring back a level of accountability in the Attorney General office. And I'm not going to back down from this fight.
I don't want to say it's a shift, but you brought up that you're fighting for the soul of the state and that you have conservative principles. And there's a lot of questions out there right now in the ranks of the Mises Caucus wing of the Libertarian Party and the more traditionally staunchly conservative wing of the Republican Party as well, about something like Real ID. And the fact that it's kind of ostensibly turning into a federal or national identification. You will have this, and without it, you will not fly. You will not travel. You know, I don't fly anyway, so Real ID is not a big deal for me. But you are not getting me on one of those long tubes with wings. So when I do go to visit my friend Pirate over in Great Britain, it'll have to be on a boat. I'm invading Great Britain, Tomsky, by the way, when I come. The accusation is out there that you were all on board and thought this was a great idea and that this is just the best thing since sliced white bread, and it shatters your conservative credentials. I have my doubts about what the end goal of Real ID is, but did you support it, and where do you stand on it now? And do you think it could open a door down the road for a actual national ID that every citizen will have to carry?
So real ID, you need to understand, I think it's important to highlight where it came from. So 9/11, 2001, our nation was in crisis. We were under attack. Congress and the president was trying to figure out a way to prevent the next 9/11. And in 2005, I believe the year was, this bill became federal law with a long rollout implementation period. That's when we lost the fight. For anyone who's upset with me about real ID, and I talk about this, not very common, not very often, but it does come up, and I'm happy
Well,
to talk
I'm
about
good for that. I'm good
it.
for bringing up weird things. So
Yeah, but I put it in my launch video that we made a year ago because I'm proud about what happened. So here's what happened. So the federal government says, you can do all these things. You can have the real ID. You can offer, so they said they wanted us to have it. If we're going to fly, go into a federal building eventually, get on a military base or into a power plant. So that's what you need it for. So I had the opportunity.
none of which I plan on doing.
Okay. Yep. I mean, but for the people that need to, the government said this is what you're going to need. So that was the law. So we can go fight Congress. But in Minnesota, they said if you don't adopt the real ID provisions, we're going to shut down air travel into Minnesota and a bunch of other things. So I had the opportunity to chief author the bill. And I took it on because I believe. So let me ask you this question, TC. Do you have a real ID or not? Right now,
I have a real Minnesota ID, but
okay. So you have what we call, if we can agree to the term, a regular Minnesota real
I have
ID.
I have a Minnesota driver's license, and I
Yep,
will not
and
give you my social security number, by the
no,
way.
nor do I want it. But you have me to thank, TC. You have me to thank for the fact that you have a traditional Minnesota driver's license. Because when I got the bill, there was a big push to make it mandatory, to make that it was a mandatory. Everyone had to have the real ID. There were some states.
What was the deadline on that?
Well, the deadline's been moved like 6 or 7 times, but
Mhm.
and I'll answer the deadline question in a minute. But because I think it's coming up this fall or next year, I haven't kept track of when the final real ID compliance is. But it's important about why I got involved, because I believe Minnesotans should have choice when it comes to when the federal government is going to lean on us and take away our liberties. You should have the choice if you want to comply with that. There are some states in our union that have mandatory real ID. If you want to drive a car, you need to have a real ID. I didn't think that was right. So I fought like heck to make sure it was an opt-in program. If you want a real ID, knock yourself out, go get one. If you want a traditional ID, knock yourself out, go get one. It should be up to every Minnesotan as to what type of ID they want.
So what your argument is like what you authored was to prevent the state from caving in to the federal government and just going to the actual real ID as a mandatory licensure for every single citizen in the state who wanted to even drive a car. You're saying that because of you, in your chief authorship of that, it prevented the state from requiring you to get a real ID, even to have a driver's license.
Yes. And I'm proud of that bill, because at the end of the day, so this is a good example about the kind of character that I have. During this process, people were writing messages on my bathroom wall outside my Capitol office, and they weren't very nice messages, TC. People were writing messages of intimidation, not very nice ones, on the sidewalk as I walk from Capitol office to the Capitol Rotunda on the days that we were debating the real ID. There was a banner made, a large 18-foot banner with big block letters with my name and some other words on the banner. There was a physical threat to my daughter that I cannot go into any more details, but there was a physical threat to my daughter who was not an adult at the time. There was a death threat that I received because of this bill, a death threat. In light of all of that, I stood in the well of the House and I debated this bill for hours and hours and hours because people tried to Christmas tree it. People wanted to put driver's license for undocumented immigrants on that bill. And I didn't have, my position on that issue is irrelevant. This bill needed to be clean. And I was getting attacked from the far left, from moderates, from people on the far right. I was getting attacked from all over the place.
Wait, the moderates attacked you?
Well, for sure. I mean, I was getting attacked from all sides, and I stood my ground and I fought for this bill.
What was the moderate? What was the moderate's reason for being mad at you for what you wrote?
Well, there were some moderates that were privacy hawks, and they didn't want to comply with the Real ID. So,
well, wait a minute. Let's touch on that though. You said they were privacy hawks, and I'm like, I'm a privacy hawk. I'm like, the less anybody in the state knows about me, the better off it is. I'm the guy that tells people, unless an officer gives you articulable reason for why they're talking to you, you don't give them your ID. So that's who I am. So, and I'm not trying to be pushy, but I'm going to be pushing my way. What's wrong with being a privacy hawk? Because are you saying that the moderates were arguing that you were forcing that? In their estimation, you were forcing people to get an ID they didn't want? Because it's to what you're telling me is different than what other people have advocated. You're telling me you were actually writing this bill to keep people from being forced to get an ID they didn't want. I've got somebody in here who clearly doesn't understand that watching right now. Oh, yeah. And there's the brains behind the operation. I saw that arm, Caroline.
Yes.
Yeah, she's itching to get in here too. But TC, this debate, you need to understand, went on for 2 years in the legislative session. It was a 2-year bill cycle.
What was the federal government holding over the head of Minnesota?
And what they still are, if you don't have one, is that you won't be able to get on an airplane with an ID. The only ID you can get on an airplane is with a passport. That's what they were saying, is that you need to have, in order to travel with your ID card, it needs to be a real ID card.
And so you were trying to avoid the idea of everybody having to go out and get a passport.
Well, exactly, because that isn't reasonable. And then also,
is it more expensive?
The exact cost, I don't remember. It's probably pretty similar. But another point about it is that the federal government was restricting people going onto military bases in other states because Minnesota wasn't on the path to Real ID compliant. I received phone calls from people saying, I'm down at the ceremony where soldiers, it's the final ceremony for soldiers before they leave our country and go defend our freedoms throughout the world. People were being denied access to the military base because they didn't have a Real ID.
They were down there to see a loved one off.
Exactly. And our state was not on didn't have a bill on the road to be compliant. Like this is more than just what people want to put on a postcard. This was a complex issue that was impacting real Minnesotans in many ways. So
don't you think that's a tool of the federal government, though, of the federal state, that they know how much power they have? I mean, you and I are, how old are you, Dennis?
I'm 55.
All right. So you and I are both old enough to remember the for lack of better terminology, the certification of the 55 mile an hour speed limit nationwide and seatbelt laws when those went into place. And what they held over the federal state held over the state was, you will all implement this or we're going to keep funding from you. We're not going to fund your highways, even the interstate anymore. Right. That's going to all be on you. And every single state caved. And more there again, people like me, more paleo type conservatives, more Mises Caucus types libertarian like me are like, so be it. Then I guess we'll just have to drive to Des Moines to get on but there again, if you don't have the right ID, you don't get on a plane. Right. So what you're telling me is that this isn't you saying, I agree with everything the federal government is saying. I'm trying to paraphrase it. I don't agree with what they're doing, but we're not going to win this fight. In short of, if you're familiar with who Thomas Woods is, he wrote a book called Nullification, which is all about states fighting against federal overreach. short of actual nullification and the states kind of standing up and giving the middle finger to the federal government in a situation like an ID, like real ID, no one's going to win this fight.
Right. We lost it in 2005.
It was already done. It was a done deal.
It was a done deal. It was done 15 or 12 years before.
Let's take this back even further. If people want to be, excuse the terminology, if people want to be pissed off at somebody, they need to be pissed off at the Minnesota state representatives
and senators
who approved it.
Yep. And also
because it passed overwhelmingly.
Right. Well, and also it's interesting you say that. Guess what? With the 2-year process and all the heat I took then, and it's still a topic now, many years later. Guess what percent of the Minnesota House of Representatives and Minnesota Senate voted for the Real ID bill? Guess what percent?
I'm not going to even try.
93.
So you're the bad guy.
93%. And by the way, it polled in the 90s as well. But 93% of my colleagues said, Smith, I'm voting. They voted green on the final passage of the bill. And I love talking about this issue. I show that I'm a principled conservative. I want people to opt in. I want people to choose what information you're going to give the government. If you don't want a real ID, thank me when you sign up for your traditional ID.
And that doesn't prevent you from traveling because the way the feds were wording it, you wouldn't be able to drive a vehicle without a real ID.
That was what some states have done, and that was the initial version. When I first took over the bill, and there's people fighting for it to be mandatory, and I thought that's wrong. Like with vaccines.
So your authorship actually just restricted it to getting on a plane and on a military base.
No, it made it where you had the option to get a real ID or to keep your traditional ID license.
Right, but if you want to get on a plane or you want to get on a military base, you have to have the real ID, and Minnesota will provide that for you at that cost. But if you're not worried about going on a military base, and if you're not worried about going into a federal building, and if you're not worried about going into a military base, then you keep your traditional ID and you can travel across the United States and you can travel across the state. That's all your bill did. It wasn't imposing the real ID on Minnesota.
It was not imposing. No.
And the bill can be read.
Yes, it is out there. Absolutely. And so the the problem is that and there again, it's one, and I'm going to say this for people. The problem is we have an out of control federal state that feels like it has the power and the authority to tell the state to do everything it wants. And if you think this is crazy for me to say this, let's just look around at the morass of problems we're experiencing right now since the current administration took office. Right. Well, and TC, there's something going on that I know you and all of your listeners are acutely aware of. We're in the crisis of medical freedom about having choice about whether you choose to put a needle in your arm that has a certain vaccine in that needle. And that should be a choice of every Minnesotan. And the federal government has tried to say in different ways that it's mandatory, just like they suggested about the real ID. I think we should have a choice if you want a real ID or not. I think we should have a choice whether you take the vaccine or not. It's an individual choice. That's what I stand for. That's what you'll get when I'm Attorney General.
I appreciate the way you're handling this. Because, and you know how this goes. No matter what you say, it's not going to be a good enough answer. But it just
sounds about right.
Somebody's always mad at there's so much infighting right now. And you've already made go ahead.
And I'm sorry for interrupting. It's okay to have disagreements. I mean, we should have disagreements.
But we need to be accurate.
Exactly. People need to be accurate. And if we agreed on every single issue all the time, then only one of us is thinking. Somebody famous once said that. And I subscribe to that. I like to have great debate. I think our democracy moves forward. I think the public discourse benefits from it. The public benefits from that when we discuss important issues. We need to do more of that. That's what I did when I was a legislator. I took on these complex issues that no one could see an answer for. They didn't give it to me because I was the most liked person. They knew that I had an incredible work ethic. I found solutions to problems that seemed impossible. And I worked on issues. Also in the legislature, I had a record number of bills signed by a governor for a 2-term legislator. And one of the bills I authored that took 2 years to get through the legislature also is we beat the trial attorneys. We had a concession from the trial attorneys, and Governor Dayton signed that bill. I mean, imagine Governor Dayton signing a bill that went against the trial attorneys. This guy chief authored it.
I was going to make a joke about attorneys, but I better not right now.
You can. I mean, I love attorney jokes. Let me have it. I love it.
No. I would like to beat all the attorneys, but that's what. You're attorney general, because you've already said you're taking this to the primary, because it's very clear that they're not going to allow you or Lynn. And I'm just bringing up names. They're not going to allow you or Lynn or anybody else that's challenging the other individual. They're not going to give you a shot at a nomination. They've made it clear, and we're seeing this over and over and over again in the state of Minnesota in the different congressional districts. I raised the question of corruption. I didn't say it's truly is, but there's definitely some good old boy status quo kind of garbage happening, and it happens all the time. But you said I'm taking this to the primary.
And TC,
what
I
happened
said that the day that I launched my campaign.
Right.
I've been consistent and open and honest about that.
If you get the nomination, fine. And nobody challenges in the primary, fine. If they do challenge you in the primary, fine. I get that. But you've said from the beginning you're going to take this to the primary. When's the primary?
August 9th.
So you get to the primary and you lose. What do?
I support the person that won and go beat Keith Ellison.
Okay. Awesome. Because that's...
I'm a proud Republican. I want to beat the Democrats.
I do too, but
we need to put our best candidate forward. And time again, we've lost 25 times in a row. The people that know this, I mean, I've been saying this so much.
When was the last Republican? You and I have talked about this numerous times. When was the last Republican Attorney General?
1966. Douglas Head was elected Attorney General. 1966.
Nobody knows who that is.
And we need to do things differently in order to win. Everyone talks about the big wins from Virginia last year, about how the governor and the attorney general and how great it is. And it is great. It was awesome. But they moved away from the caucus system into a primary system. Mm-hmm. And they got candidates that appeal to the general public in a wider fashion. And what they get out of it, they got a Republican governor, they got a Republican attorney general. We need that here in Minnesota. So I proudly go to the primary, and I'm asking for everyone's vote. And I got to tell you, my reception has been very great around the state. I've been traveling the states. I've been in 82 counties. You've seen my fundraising numbers. We have 2.5 times the money of Keith Ellison. We are.
So you don't need any more money then?
I'm sorry?
You don't need any more money.
Oh, no. I held a fundraiser 2 days ago. I'm fundraising. We need to continue to fundraise.
Let me ask this then, because this is a question that people ask all the time about candidates for office.
Yeah.
Let's say you don't burn through your entire your campaign fund, and you get to the primary and you lose and you have money left over. What happens with that?
Well, you can do a couple of different things. You can hold it and keep it in your account for a future run, or decide what you're going to do with it later on. You don't need to do anything right away. If people think they're going to run again for something, they hang on to that money, because you can transfer money from some offices to some other races, depending on there are rules for it, but in general, I think the rule is, and I'm not an expert here, but you can move money if you're seeking a higher office.
Mm-hmm.
And but you also, if you want to terminate your campaign, then you have to give the money to different types of organizations. What's often done is that campaign gives the money to other campaigns, which you can do of any type of campaign that you want. If you're terminating your
I asked that because a lot of people think that, oh, well, I've donated money to this person and then they lost and they had money left over and now they're going to go out and buy a brand new Corvette or a Tesla, whatever is politically correct these days. So
no, you can't use it for personal use. It needs to be, you need to give it to a political entity. You can't use it for personal use.
Unless you happen to be Ilhan Omar, but anyway.
Yes, that's a different story. But
TC, perfect. You brought up election integrity, and I brought up Ilhan Omar. So I'm going to make these things work together. Ilhan Omar in the state of Minnesota in the 2020 election has caught blue-handed. She was caught blue. Why is your shirt blue, by the way? Why did you pick blue?
Well, so this is a Minnesota color. And this color is catching on. More than 70% of the statewide candidates on the Republican side have this color in their logo. Check it out. We were the first. Everyone's going to it. Do you like Kristi Noem in South Dakota?
I might have a political crush on Kristi.
Okay. She adopted my color after we took it. So did
she call you first?
She did not call me. I do know. I've met her, but I've now no. She didn't call me.
Okay, I was going to say maybe she called and said, "Hey, Dennis, can I have your color?"
If we are going to win in Minnesota as a Republican, we need to do things differently. My campaign is doing that. We're campaigning in a different way. We're using technology that's never been used before in a statewide race that's redefining how we campaign. We're using colors that are not necessarily attached to a political party. Many campaigns use colors that are different colors. Congressman Eric Paulson from the 3rd Congressional District used orange as his primary color. I know people that use yellow and black. Like a color, it doesn't mean what party you're from. A color is representing the campaign and what you stand for. And this color blue is part of the color schematic for Minnesota. I'm running for Minnesota
flag and whatnot. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, no, you're fine. I'm glad that you turned that into a pitch because I was just picking on you a little bit. So, Ilhan Omar's caught blue, red hand. I don't even know what color. She got caught, clearly, harvesting ballots. She had a staffer bragging about it. Alpha News here in the state of Minnesota published the video. And of course, everybody poo-pooed it. It was a setup. It was racist. It was bigoted. It was, it was misogynistic. It was patriarchal. It was, you throw out all the buzzwords of all the things that you're not allowed to be. It was fascist. It was Nazi. It's all of that stuff. And the fact of the matter is she got caught, but she continued to run for office. She won and nobody's touched her. You're attorney general. You catch wind of that. What can the attorney general do in that situation in the state of Minnesota with an Ilhan Omar? And I'll just keep saying it until people get it.
Yeah. When I'm attorney general, every claim of voter fraud will be investigated thoroughly. If you break the law, you will go to jail, period. I don't care what level you're at or, what you did, it'll be investigated. And if you're found guilty, you're going to go to jail.
Wonderful. Would you support, and I say this because I don't see it happening anytime soon. Let me not even say support. Should a Minnesotan who wants to vote have to identify themselves to vote?
Yes.
Is it racist to expect somebody to produce ID to vote?
No.
Is it racist to say Minorities can't find out how to get an ID. Never mind. I think that is the most racist thing I've ever heard in my life. Poor people and minorities aren't smart enough to get ID, so they can't vote. That's the most bunk thing I've ever heard in my life to ever justify what they're doing. I'm glad to hear you say that. Um, here's a series of kind of quick fire. How limited, in a very quick fire way, how limited do you think things like civil asset forfeiture should be for when it comes to fighting crime? Because that's a big question right now, because there are a lot of people being abused by civil asset forfeiture right
Yeah.
now.
This is an issue that the police don't like my answer on, and that is their problem. But we have this is an area that the police have overreached on, and that will be I would like to work on that, and I will address this issue when I'm Attorney General.
So you are opposed to the way it's being managed at the very least.
Right, and also the accountability of where the money is going. What is it being used for? This is the thing that just drives me mad, and there's countless examples. So, someone's car gets taken, the police take it, and they hold it. They're going to sell it, but there's people, their family members that rely on that car to go to work, and the people that are trying to climb up the economic ladder, they don't have a way to get to work now. It's just like if you're behind on child support, that they take your license. It's like, well, how
And
are
then
we
throw you in jail.
Yeah, how are we expecting someone to go to work to make money to pay their child support? Now, don't get me wrong. People need to pay their bills. They need to pay their child support. But is punishing the way that they pay the bill actually working? Let's be honest about this.
I can tell you from personal experience, over almost 13 years, there were people out there who were suffering because they could not hold a job, because every single time that they would be near landing a job, they'd get arrested for not paying their child support, and then they lose the job, and then they would end up in the arrears, and they would continue to keep, and then they lock them up on what is not ostensibly but factually a civil situation, and judges holding people in contempt for not paying their child support and throwing them in jail for that.
And there needs to be an incentive for people to pay their debts, but we go about these things in a wrong way. That is punishing, and it's a disproportionate amount of African from Minnesotans that are Black that get impacted by this, and it's wrong.
Boy, we answered two questions and I didn't even ask one of them, but that was a great answer. No-knock warrants, as Attorney General, there's not a lot you can do about it, but no-knock warrants have, again, reared their ugly head because they're getting used more and more often. And I just had Jai Hansen on, who's running for Hennepin County Sheriff, and he said, I want to make them aggressively less common. Not like aggressively use them more. He said, I want to aggressively make them less used. Right. There needs to be compelling circumstances, and we need to be certain about, I'm paraphrasing our conversation, but how do you feel about no-knock warrants as an attorney, as a potential attorney general? How do you feel about them? Because there are a lot of people on both sides of the aisle right now saying, I've about had it.
Yeah. This is another example where the police don't necessarily like my answer. They need to be used less. We need to use technology and common sense and use them in a way when it's truly necessary. Because we saw in this other incident that you're speaking of, where someone lost their life, that an innocent person lost their life because of the misuse of this no-knock warrant. Where was the person? The police felt so compelled to bust into this apartment because they were certain this person was in there and people were in harm's way. Where was the person they were seeking? 80 miles away. So let's
you come through my front door with a gun pointed at me, I'm probably going to open fire on you too.
And you're in a sleep and you get woken up and you're startled. It was.
I probably shouldn't have said that. So that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, and so they need to be very rare. And when these incidents happen, we need to have true accountability. Why did it leave Ramsey County as a knock warrant, and then Hennepin County changed it to a no knock?
Or especially when Ramsey didn't feel like it was necessary.
Right.
Exactly.
Did we really use technology the best we can? Did we if this person was in there, this was from a crime that allegedly happened a month earlier. So why don't we just sit on that apartment to see if the person is going to come out? Because if we did, we'd have an innocent person still alive today, number one. And number two, at some point we would have realized the person they were looking for was 80 miles away. He didn't go through a tunnel 80 miles away.
Precisely. Would you, as Attorney General, actively, if need be, sue the federal state to prevent them from implementing red flag laws nationwide, especially here in the state of Minnesota? And will you actively fight against any more infringements than we already have on the Second Amendment here in the state of Minnesota?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about being in office and having votes that are recorded is people know where you stand, and it's not just rhetoric. I have 100% voting record with Minnesota Gun Owner Caucus, 100% when I served in the legislature for 4 years. And I have defended our Second Amendment, and I will continue to defend our Second Amendment in every way possible.
Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus now thanks you.
And
They don't even know who I am, but they like you. So,
and it isn't, well, yes. Yeah, go ahead. That's rapid fire question.
No, I was thinking about what my next rapid fire question would be, but
can I
go
ask
ahead.
one?
Of me?
No,
or are you going to ask me to ask you one?
I was going to the latter. I was going to ask you to ask one.
Okay. Why don't you ask yourself?
So, Dennis, what are you doing?
He does.
Dennis, what are you doing in North Minneapolis to help with the issue going on with all the crime? TC, thanks for asking that question.
You're welcome. You know what, the show's yours. I'll see it later.
Okay. So
Dennis, what are you doing in North Minneapolis to help with all the crime?
We know there is a crime epidemic going on. We see the stats. We see it every day.
It's spreading.
Exactly. And we need to stop being fascinated and paralyzed by the numbers and take action. Leaders need to take action. That's what I'm doing. 2 months ago, I launched the Andre Conley Youth Leadership Program. Andre was gunned down and lost his life.
That was horrible. There's so much to that story.
So my campaign started a youth leadership program, paid positions for people from North Minneapolis that want to get involved and make a difference. And we're giving them hope. That's all they want. They just want a chance in life. And it's amazing how many, we have dozens and dozens of youth coming to this campaign that want to be involved. It isn't about politics. We're not indoctrinating them into conservatism. No, they
don't need to be there. A lot of them are.
Yeah, they want the streets to be safe. They want exactly what you and I want. They want to go to school and not be shot.
Say his name again? Andre Conley.
Andre Conley.
Let's be the interest of full disclosure, because there are going to be people outside of Minnesota. There are people in Minnesota that aren't going to recognize this. You got your dog's in there, isn't he?
Yes.
Your dog made an appearance last time too.
That's right. Yep. Yes, he did.
He's the most photogenic dog on campaign. Andre was campaigning for. He was door knocking that day for Lacey Johnson, who was a Republican, a black Republican, running in what district was that at the time?
5.
District 5. When he was gunned down outside of a gas station. And, I'm not going to speculate. There has been a lot of speculation about why he was gunned down, some accident, some targeted and whatnot. Nobody said in mainstream media said a word about it other than young black man shot.
Right.
That's it.
And
And that is why we're having the problem that we're having is that no one is taking this crime wave seriously and talking about what we need to do. And now we've got, the federal government saying we're going to step in now with serious, violent crimes. Like, no, I don't want any more federal involvement. We need the federal government out of our daily lives. We need the federal government out of managing our state. What we need is a governor and an attorney general to have the cojones to say we're going to deal with crime. We are going to deal. We could activate the National Guard to go into hospitals during the height of the COVID pandemic after the hospitals started firing people. And we could put our National Guard into hospitals, but we couldn't put them on the streets to quell riots in time. And we can't do anything to stop the crime wave that's ripping across. I mean, we're getting carjackings in Rochester, Minnesota. Rochester, Minnesota. There's shootings. There's shootings daily in Rochester, Med City. Like, people kind of, like, no offense to the people in the cities, but they kind of expect, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, people are going to get shot. That's just kind of what happens. But there are people who won't even ride light rail right now. They're literally writing letters to Metro Transit saying, I'm not getting on your cotton picking trains ever again. Every time I'm on there, I'm either assaulted, accosted, or surrounded by drug use. And we can't do anything while they defund law enforcement. And some of these agencies, some of these entities at the public sector have walked it back. I'm sure you're aware. The University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities has said, oh, you know what? We'd like to rethink our decision to not have anything to do with law enforcement. Right. Because their students aren't safe anymore. Right. I mean, this is a massive issue. And our attorney general is absent. He's busy prosecuting business owners for staying open during restrictions. Still prosecuting business owners. Thousands and millions of taxpayer dollars to prosecute business owners. But we can't do a darn thing about the crime. Oh, it's not our responsibility. That's got to be on the local municipalities. So I'm glad to hear about your initiative. You got any bright, shining stars coming in on that one that are?
Yeah, we do. And what's so inspirational is that these young people are getting involved in their community. They need hope. All the leaders, this problem we have with crime that you're talking about, we're reading about every day, that we're living through. Everybody, we need to stop talking about the stats and we need to actually do something. And what I have done is I launched this leadership program. Laverne Turner from Minneapolis is heading this up, and we are giving.
Laverne is awesome.
He is. Yes. Yeah, exactly. He's heading up this initiative. He's doing a great job. And we're giving these young students and young adults a hope for the future. And they're so inspirational. And I hope that these people that are coming to this program, I hope that they identify with politics, that they want to get involved and help their community. Maybe they'll run for office in the future. Regardless of any of that, they want to stay alive. They want to end the violence in their streets. And they're coming to this campaign with these great blue shirts that are super soft, by the way, TC. And they wear these shirts with pride. And
they're not as soft as mine.
And they door knock for this campaign. And they're excited because they're working towards making their community better. That's what my campaign is doing.
How do I want to? You're passionate about a lot of stuff, and you know, and you know this. You're polished. You're used to doing this now. You're on the campaign trail on a regular basis, and I'm sure you've done a lot of other interviews besides me. I'm the long form guy that just talks to people until they are ready to go to bed. I'm sure we probably talked Caroline. We lost our chance on Caroline. She went to bed already, didn't she?
She did. No, she's waiting to come on. She's excited.
Okay. You're passionate about a lot of this stuff, and that's great. I mean, it's great. I wish you talk to so many people running for office right now, and they're too polished, and sometimes they're kind of schmoozy, and you can see through it, and and it's easy. And I'm sure you probably catch yourself doing this too, kind of reverting to campaign mode when you're talking to people. And but there's also a genuineness to you. But how is this? How is campaigning and all the the attacks from the left, the attacks from other people, and they're supposed to be even though you're running against you, they're supposed to be on your side. How is this affecting you? Because it's got to get tiring. It's,
You know,
I
you know,
get
no,
tired, and I mean I mean I've been through the ringer in the last couple of years, but and I get tired of the people that they come up with just the most asinine things that about people and without knowing all the facts. How are
yeah,
you doing? How are you doing on a personal level? Like the
yeah.
real Dennis, not the campaigning Dennis. Like this is you got to be exhausted.
Well, I am tired. I mean, 82 counties. We've been campaigning for a year. We're setting a record fundraising. We launched this youth leadership program. I want to talk about my task force as well before we conclude for the night. But it energizes me, and I don't mind being criticized because that's what happens when you step into the public life. When you expose yourself to all the things that you're not perfect in, and none of us are perfect. Jesus taught us that, and you get to see the real person when they're out on the campaign trail. And as I've been traveling these 82 counties, it's so fun to talk to fellow Minnesotans. Last night I was in Beaver Bay, Minnesota. Great people in Beaver Bay. And last summer I went up there, and stop me if I told you this story before, but I went
I
up there
don't think
last
so
summer.
because I would have made a joke about Beaver Bay then, like I'm thinking
Okay.
about right now.
Yeah.
But
Last summer, I've been up there a couple of times, but last summer they endorsed us they endorsed us about 5 months ago. But we went up there last summer. They were so excited we were going up there because they said no statewide candidate came up to see them in 2018 or 2014 or 2010.
wait, are you kidding me?
No,
How big is Beaver Bay? That
it's
sounds like a
about
show.
it's almost a Grand Marais.
Oh,
And it's not
wow.
the largest town, but when I went up there was over 30 people, and the organizer was so excited that I was coming up. She couldn't believe it because we called her and said, "We want to come talk." And she said, "Well, we have a group of about 30 people, but are you sure you want to come? Like, I know where you are, where you're from. That's a long way." I said, "We're traveling the state. We're going everywhere. That's what's different about this campaign. That's how we're going to be a different attorney general. Every voice matters in Minnesota." And we went up there, TC, and she said, "If you come, I will bake you a pie in appreciation of you coming." And so Caroline and I talked at length about what kind of pie she was going to make. And Caroline was very nice and conceded to my favorite pie, which is triple berry. So this person made a triple berry pie, vodka crust, and it was delightful. And she couldn't believe that we were up there.
Vodka crust.
Yeah, it was a great pie. And that's the kind of reception we're getting throughout the state. So is the campaign trail exhausting? Yes, it is.
But you get vodka crust triple berry pie, so
exactly.
win-win. Like
And I've put my life on hold for the past year, and it's on hold for the next 6 months. And we're dedicated to winning this race because there's that much at stake. We haven't won the attorney general race in 56 years. We talked about that. We've lost 25 statewide elections in a row, 25 in a row. So we're doing things differently. We have these great blue shirts. By the way, we're giving these shirts away. Contact me at dennissmith.org or any social media. We want you to wear these with pride. We're giving them away. We've given away hundreds of them. We're using technology that's never been used before in a statewide race. We're raising money. We're getting Democrats to give us money. TC, we're getting Democrats to give us money because we're running the type of campaign that they will be proud of. They know that I'll be the type of attorney general that they will be proud
let's be honest, they're embarrassed by their current attorney general.
Right. But
Who won't speak out on people like John Thompson? I mean, that's a perfect example of what corruption looks like. When you got a guy like John Thompson nobody will address it.
So is it the campaign exhausting? Yes. Do I like it when people say things about me that aren't true? No, that's no fun. But I have thick skin and I care about this state, and I'm fighting, as I said before, for the soul of this state. And if that's what I need to go through to get this state back on track, to bring the Constitution back, to defend every single person in the state, I willingly do it, and I wake up every day and I fight like hell for this state.
Tell us about your task force so we can get Carolyn in here and the pooch.
Yes. So Minnesota ranks in the highest of human and sex trafficking stats of all the other states. We're near the top in every single category. That is unacceptable. A measure of a society is how you treat the most vulnerable. And the fact that Minnesota is leading the nation in categories of human and sex trafficking is unacceptable. I launched a task force a couple of months ago, 3 months ago now, to bring light to this issue, to study this issue, and to find creative solutions as to how we can end human and sex trafficking. It is unacceptable that Minnesota is one of the highest in the country, and we aren't doing anything about it. I repeat, we're not doing anything about it, TC. How can
we're bringing in the
ourselves?
people we're bringing people in unfettered into the state who are complicit in the high sex trafficking industry, if you will, and we're not vetting anyone. We're just people do laugh when I tell them Minnesota is in the top of the sex trafficking triangle in this country, and they're like, Minnesota? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah, we need to go after the
scary.
people. Yes, we need to go after the people that are facilitating this. We need to go after the people that are involved, that are the end users, and then most importantly, we need to help the victims. I have spoken to victims across the state. It is heartbreaking what is left with their life. We need to support them. Their voice matters. Their life matters. I'm fighting for it.
And people don't understand either that the sex trafficking industry, if you will, it's not just one particular group of people. It touches a wide swath of society, and it comes from every level of culture and income and means. It is massive, and it is a major problem in this state. And I'm in communication and just had a conversation, a couple of days ago with somebody who is pretty sure that they have a family member that's been trafficked and they don't know what to do about it. It's just that bad. And there again, you can't put a look on it. You can't put a culture on it. It is rampant in Minnesota, and not just the Twin Cities. It's everywhere.
Right.
All right, Caroline, get in here. We started the show with her last time, so
I've just been working.
yeah, I saw you sweeping earlier. I was like,
that was a break. That was like a mental break because I just was on Zoom all day and
sweeping was a mental break.
Yes.
Yeah,
because
you should take her out for a dinner and a drink after this if sweeping is the break she needs.
Well, you don't have to think about anything.
Carolyn, how you doing with all the traveling and the campaigning?
Oh, good. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yes, you sound excited right now. That's it. Is it? Are you surprised about how much of the state you've seen?
No, because that was like one of the goals in the very beginning was to travel to every county. So there's
a lot of beauty out there.
Yeah, we didn't do 87 yet.
Five more.
Like I thought the last time that we talked, you were up at like 60.
Yeah,
maybe more. So what 5 do you have left?
Well, it's really the corners of the state. A couple of counties near the corners of the state. And
have you been to Fillmore yet?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get to Fillmore and I didn't know it?
We were down at the pizza, weren't we? The pizza place at what was that?
Yeah, we've been crisscrossing the state.
Wait a minute. You were in my county at a pizza place. Which pizza place were you at in my county?
Yeah, you were. I was told by my team members that you were notified of it and you had a conflict.
Mary told you about it. What was the name of that place?
I don't remember the name I could describe the pizza place. That had a nice little room to the right. Very good pizza.
It was on a little tiny main street.
Really cute main street. Yeah.
Fountain. Was it Fountain?
That could be. I'd have to.
Did you go to the Village the village pizza place in Fountain, because they've got a little room off to the right. I don't know.
That could be it. I can check to look, but we've had I've given my speech really close to 300 times, and we've been crisscrossing the state. We haven't been in your county just once, but we're crisscrossing. We're in the counties. I mean, it just hasn't been 82 times that we've been on a campaign event. I mean, it's in so we've been all over. We've been in your county more than that, but I promise you, the next time we're close by, I will call you personally to let you know.
I'll just randomly show up someplace and you'll be there from the sounds of it. So.
Well, you'll see if you look on Facebook, you can keep good track of where the events are. We're starting to put all of the events on Facebook now.
I'm too busy promoting my coffee sales on Facebook to do anything else.
Did you tell them about the block parties?
No, don't tell them that.
Go ahead, Caroline, since you brought it up.
Yeah, the 21st.
Okay, so one of the things we're doing is we're going to bring some music and food all over. We're focusing on the metro because that is where we need to generate the most votes in order
to break through there,
win. To actually win. So we're going like within a 15-20 mile radius of the downtown areas, and a lot downtown. We're bringing live music or DJ. We're bringing food. And we're bringing the candidates. So it's kind of like a summer block party series. Our
first one, it hasn't been launched yet, but it's Saturday, the 21st of May. And we're going to have the details out very soon, within a couple of days, about the location. And it's so exciting about this is that
are we going to have like fencing and law enforcement there to protect us?
No, this one's going to be in North Minneapolis too, the first one, but no, there's not going to be any. There's going to be we have our leadership kids that are going to do door knocking and kind of like hand out flyers and then just for the whole neighborhood. And so we're just going to raise awareness about the campaign and name ID and that type of thing.
And when we're out talking to people in the community, no matter where we're at, people are excited that we're doing things differently, that we're having these block parties, that we're using technology, that we're giving away these great T-shirts. I mean, people want a change. They want to be safe in the streets. They want the Constitution to be followed, and they're responding to this campaign. This is just another example about it, and it's really fun.
I think this is probably the first time most people even have met attorney general candidates, let alone like gone to an event that they're hosting, because it's just not common.
The other day we were out for breakfast, and our digital media is starting to work really well, because then people see the shirt and they are like, I've seen you before, or they recognize him. And we were at a cafe. This was also in North Minneapolis, and we were walking out and we were like, oh, let's take our social media post, because everything about a campaign's about notifying everyone what you're doing. It's a public thing. And so we were taking the picture, and then someone's knocking on the window inside the cafe. And Dennis is like trying to talk to her through the window, and she's like, come back in. And she was like, wait, are you the Dennis Smith, or are you
like, no, I'm the imposter.
Yeah, or do you just work for him? And he's like, no, I'm the Dennis Smith. And then they were talking, and she knew some of his platforms. And she said she had a 15-year-old who was interested in the leadership program. He already has another job, but he wants to get involved in the community too. And so that was awesome. And
you make a difference.
And then somebody came up and he was totally disinterested, and he was like, whatever, like, who are these people talking? And then he said, wait, you're running for attorney general and you're in the community right now? And Dennis was like, yeah, I'm running for attorney general. He's like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. So
you can't hardly get people that live in those areas that are running for office to actually get out into their own communities.
Right.
They even live in their own communities. Let's just be honest with you. Some people just never. I'm not going to touch on.
Yeah.
Where is the dog?
He had a bad day because their smoke alarm kept beeping, and now he's traumatized. So he was hiding in my closet for most of the day, and now I didn't realize that. I was just like it was such a high pitched sound, he could hear it. But
I'll go get him.
Yeah, but I think the block parties are going to be really fun, and it's just an idea we had before we started the campaign last year. We were like, if we're going to do this, let's try to make this fun for everyone and not just like, oh, come to a meet and greet and a political,
There.
listen to
Oh, poor fella.
I know. He had a
Aw.
bad day. He had a bad
So mom's
day.
got to change the battery on the smoke detector
I
so
know.
that it doesn't
did.
beep all day.
I
Oh,
did.
see, that makes it all better. Look at that. So you know what?
Exactly.
You guys just gained all the dog votes.
Yeah.
So that's like our current governor, he likes to post pictures of his dog and his cat, and most of us are like, we'd much rather look at your dog.
Thanks.
So TC, sometime next time, if you'll have me back, I'll tell you the story about how
I'm a pretty busy guy.
And no, I'd love to come back on because I'd love to tell a story about how I chief authored the bill to create pet trusts in Minnesota.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
we did. Okay, yep. And my dog.
Oh, you talked about that last time. Remember when the dog was on?
Yeah. So we brought it up, and I'm
testified, and
so
I
that
think
there's
she's
somebody
the
there
first-
to take care of your dog or your
I
pet.
think she was the first dog to testify in the Minnesota House of Representatives in the history of the state. It was pretty exciting.
That is cool. Like people don't think about it very often. Like, okay, if something happens to me and I have kids, who's going to take the kids? Who's going to take, what I'm going to do with the house? Very
Right.
rarely is there anybody ever thinks about who's going to take care of the dog. So,
and that bill received some criticism. This is another example of how I can build a coalition and get support for bills and move and solve complex issues. Because there was some controversy about that, and the farming community was concerned, etc. At the end of the day, that bill received 98% of the vote of my colleagues in the Minnesota House and Minnesota Senate.
Why would they take issue with pets? I don't know. I don't you know what? I'd like to say that I understand people, but I don't. Most of the time, I just I just scratch my head and go. I'm going to ask you one last hard question, and then you guys probably have better things to do. It's 9:30. We've been at this for 2 hours, almost 9:30. We mentioned the SCOTUS leak and whatnot, but apart from that, let's say it's the leak aspect. Let's say it's true, and let's say that it does come down to a 5-4 in later this year or whenever, and and SCOTUS says what they should have said back in 1972, which was 1972. Yeah, that's right. 72. I think that's right. Yeah, 72. So. And should have left it in the hands of the state, like it was meant to be, which pretty much everything was meant to be left in the hands of the state. And we have a governor who says, not on my watch. And that's what he said. And he's been tweeting about it incessantly since the leak came out. As Attorney General, can you step in and say, in that situation, is it possible for the Attorney General to have an impact on the abortion issue?
The state law, if what you said, this hypothetical that you outlined, transpires, then state law will come into play. The legislature can draft a law and the governor can sign it. And the Attorney General will follow the laws of the state. And an argument can be made about whether the Supreme Court should do that or should not. And there, so that is one element of it. The leak we talked about earlier, that's,
like I said, aside from all of that, let's say it does take place. Does the Attorney General have a responsibility in that situation at the legislature? Because there are states out there that have trigger, for lack of better terminology, they have trigger precedents in place so that, oh, wait, if the Supreme Court does this, then this immediately goes into effect. And some of those states also have attorney generals who have said, well, we're going to stand in the way of that. We'll actually sue the state to keep that from happening. I've heard rumors of that. Whether or not it's true or not, I do not know.
Yeah, no, the attorney general has an obligation and is upheld to follow the law and to support the Minnesota Constitution and follow the laws in the state. And that's what I will do as attorney general. And I will do that equally for regardless what the issue is, because we need to bring back a fairness and an accountability to how the state operates. I will do that as attorney general.
Awesome.
TC, it was great to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
And
I think this was longer than last time. I didn't think we'd take this long.
and if I could have a 30 seconds for a closing statement.
You can never give the politician 30 seconds. I'll turn it into 3 minutes.
No, I'll legit.
Bye, Caroline.
Bye.
I'll legit keep it to 30 seconds.
That's how you see why I stepped away. I have other things. I have work to do.
She thinks it's going to be more than 30 seconds,
Yeah.
but you're right. This has gone on for almost 2 hours, and it's been delightful. And I would love to have dinner, so I will keep it to 30 seconds. To everyone watching this show or watches it later on, if you want to be a part about changing history, if you want to be a part about changing the direction of this state, join our campaign. We're having fun. As I mentioned, we're traveling the state. We're doing things differently. You can campaign from your home, helping out the campaign with the technology that we've deployed that's never been used before, that is exclusive to our Attorney General campaign. We're going to win this election, and we want your help. Come with us on this journey. Come help us make history. DennisSmith.org is my website. Contact us on social media. Let's get involved, and let's get Keith Ellison out of Minnesota politics for good.
You did a pretty good job there. It wasn't 3 minutes, but it wasn't 30 seconds either, but you did a pretty good job. Dennis, go eat dinner. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
We'll talk
See you,
soon.
TC.
Bye.
Good night.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I asked him some of the hard questions that were there and got some clarification on things like his position on gun control. And I mean, it's not easy to get a 100% certification from the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus because they are pretty stingy. And so it's very important for people to look. Like he said he'll honor the primary. He's just not going to wait he's not going to go with the endorsement process. And I think that, right now that's a good idea. I think we should be running primaries on pretty much everybody right now in the state of Minnesota. We need to shake people up, get them out of their comfort zones. Look, there's a lot of people running for attorney general here in the state. I've had a conversation with Lynn, and now I've had a couple of conversations with Dennis. I've reached out to others. I'm going to let you guys decide for yourself why they won't talk to somebody like me. I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I think there's a certain air of I don't have time for small platforms. I'm bigger than that. And it can be a little frustrating, but we have to make the right decision. And I think what Dennis said in this situation is whoever gets the primary nod, we have to get behind them, because I'll tell you this, I am a never Ellison guy. I will never, ever, 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 ever. I'd vote for a dead frog on the side of the road in Minnesota, which is pretty easy to find, before I would ever support somebody like Ellison. But I think it's also time for us to wake up the party status quo and shake them to the core. And so that they stop just trying to tell us who's best for us and let us decide that for ourselves. Once again, if you guys are interested in any kind of merchandise or coffee, all you have to do is message me, TC Pearson at protonmail.com. You can find me on Facebook at TC Pearson. You can find me on Twitter at Black Robe Regiment. You can also now find me on Discord, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast. I have a Subscribe Star set up waiting for approval. There's going to be some exclusive content and things offered there. So, hey, if you enjoy the show, share it out. If you have questions, reach out to Dennis and let him know. If you got pushback or feedback from me, let me know. And whatever it is you do, get involved. Get involved. Be involved. Stay involved. If you're conservative, Republican, it's really, really important that we come back and take the party back from the centrist and take the party back from the rhinos and take the party back from the people who have been in power for so long, because they're not really accurately representing us. And we need to fight back against the state. And when I say that, I mean this just conglomeration and amorphous giant blob that all it does is rule and dictate from on high with no thought for what the rest of us do and how we live our lives. They just don't care. And a position like Attorney General especially is very important in that argument. And we've seen that in how Ellison has ruled as high potentate of justice in the state of Minnesota since the coup came on the scene in 2020. We need all the support we can get for solid candidates in every office, but we definitely need to be eyeing the race for Attorney General here in the state of Minnesota. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed, like, comment, and share. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, sic semper tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at